morning and happy Easter. John North, my colleague, with us for a very important conversation with a man who knows this day well, the Bishop of the Knoxville Diocese, Mark Beckman. It's a pleasure to have you in. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, John. I'm very grateful to be with you this morning.
And happy Easter to you as well.
And happy Easter. Thank you.
I'm going to introduce our panel. We'll get to questions. Susan Richardson-Williams is a Republican. She runs her own PR firm. Nice to have you with us.
Good morning, Johns.
Don Bosch is a Democrat, runs his own law firm, and we're hoping that you're behaving.
I do my very best. Thank you.
It's Easter.
Good morning. It's Easter.
Intermittently.
Bishop, we wanted to have you on because there have been some changes within the Knoxville Diocese that we really want to talk to, and we feel like this morning may be the perfect opportunity for that. So again, thank you for your time. I'm going to make it clear that we are taping this episode not on Easter morning, but a couple weeks before. So
please do not call the diocese. This is really
That's
not
right.
a Sunday.
That's right. Let's talk first a little bit about your background. You were appointed by then Pope Francis in May of 2024 and then installed as bishop in July of 2024. Explain what's happened since then.
So I was indeed selected by Pope Francis and arrived here in mid-July to begin the work as bishop. And one of the things that I've discovered is it's a very large geographical area that the diocese covers. So I'm in all of East Tennessee, from literally up to Mountain City in the northeast, to Copper Hill in the southeast, to South Pittsburgh in the southwest, and Jamestown in the northwest. So I have been busy traveling around this entire diocese and getting to know the people of East Tennessee.
You were mentioning before we came on the air that you have close to 85,000 people you oversee in the diocese and that it's growing. What's behind that growth?
So there are indeed about 85,000 Catholics now in East Tennessee. So we're somewhere between 3 and 4% of the population of East Tennessee. And the thing that's fueling the growth is a lot of movement, a lot of people moving to East Tennessee. So as I've traveled around the communities, we have about 51 churches. I've been meeting people and I'll ask, how long have you been here? And I get varied answers like a year, 3 years, 5 years, 7 years. So I'm meeting a lot of people who have moved here from a lot of other places.
And just quickly, your own personal background has roots in Tennessee.
Yes, I'm a native Tennessean, grew up in southern Middle Tennessee in Lawrence County, and lived almost my entire life except studies in Middle Tennessee as a priest in the Diocese of Nashville, which covers the Middle Tennessee area.
Bishop, what does this diocese need and how are you seeking to give it to the parishioners?
You know, one of the things that a diocese needs from a bishop is a sense of presence and vision. So being able to be very present to the people as a shepherd is very important, but also setting a tone, a direction. Where are we going as a community of faith? So those are the two really important elements.
And where do you see the diocese going?
Well, I am so delighted to see the growth in East Tennessee. I'm delighted to see the growth in our community. Everywhere I go, there is an enthusiasm, an excitement for being part of the church, for being in East Tennessee. And my goal is to kind of fan the flames of that and help people to feel inspired that we are going someplace important. We have a positive difference that we can make in the world today, and let's roll up our sleeves and do that positive work in the world today.
Well, Bishop, we're very happy to have you in the community, and I think what you're saying is very good. You have a bit of a challenge, though. Your predecessor, unfortunately, left under a cloud, Bishop Sticca, who's now recently passed. What have you found what residual is there that you feel like you have to heal within the Catholic Church in our community because of the issues, not only involving Bishop Sticca, but it was really a nationwide issue concerning child sex abuse and some of the cover-ups of the Catholic Church previously. What are you able to do to sort of heal that wound within that community?
I think the most important thing, and I was asked about that early on when I was appointed, I think the most important thing is being present and listening to people. And so I've spent a lot of time in the last year and a half as I've been traveling around the diocese, listening to people's stories, their reactions. And you're right, we lived through some painful years, and there was a whole spectrum of responses. And I find that people appreciate the fact that I'm willing to listen to them, but I think there's also a desire to say, okay, we appreciate that, but where are we going now? That sense of we need healing, yes, but we also need a direction to go.
Do you feel like the Catholic Church has done enough to sort of deal with this problem and correct the things that were going on and, make those victims that were whole, and I'm not talking about just money, but spiritually counseling families, do you feel like the Catholic Church has done enough to help those people?
I think there is always a need for ongoing healing. So those who've experienced any kind of wounds, particularly around abuse in childhood, whether it's physical or sexual, there was an ongoing need for healing. So that is not something that that happens instantly or is a one-time event.
Well, this is a political show on occasion.
Yes.
And so I want to talk a little bit about the Catholic Church and the migrants. The 3 bishops in Tennessee have put out some very strong statements about walking with your migrant brothers and sisters. What is the church doing to make that happen, to implement that statement?
Yes, that is a great concern on the part of our bishops across the country. It has been a great concern of both Pope Francis and Pope Leo. And it's also been a concern of mine because one of the things that I discovered when I arrived in East Tennessee is, especially in the rural areas, about 30% of our Catholic community are Spanish speaking.
Yes.
I remember one of the early places I went was Morristown, and we had a mass there. I looked out in the church and it was full of Spanish-speaking people. So I think that we have to be very aware that newcomers in our country right now are feeling a lot of fear and concern.
They're terrified. Many of them are terrified.
Yes,
They're afraid to send their children to school or to church or anywhere
or leave
else.
home.
Yeah.
Or come to court, as I've literally had people in my office recently, and they're literally, can you help us and make sure we don't have to come to court? So it's frightening. So are you fearful that ICE or some other law enforcement agency might come into the churches here in East Tennessee and take any actions against immigrants?
My hope is that even though I know that ICE work in a lot of different places, that they would be respectful of sacred places of worship. So, I mean, there is a sense of the church has always had a sense of we are there to worship God, and to respect those sacred places is an important matter.
It's always been a sanctuary, whatever church it may be.
We're going to take a quick break, pause here, and we'll be back with our conversation on this Easter morning with Bishop Beckman. We're back after this. We are back, and you are looking at the center of the Knoxville Diocese. That cathedral is extraordinary. If you've never had a chance to walk inside it, it is fairly new in terms of historical perspective, and it is worth a look. The man who leads the flock in East Tennessee is with us this Easter morning, and that is Bishop Mark Beckman. It's always good to have you in and people with your perspective in to talk about some current events and also what's happening in your world. John North?
Bishop, we just wanted to pick up where we left off from the first block, this question that Susan raised in terms of concerns about the federal efforts to deport or sweep up people, which is occurring here and up and down East Tennessee. I'm just curious, sir, what kinds of things, in a quiet way, because I think that's how you all are operating, are you doing to help the community, to look out for the community? What sorts of things, I know like through the newsletter, I believe, or messages, you've been informing the community about some situations that have been happening, not in a sort of a loud, blaring way, but you have let people know that there are members of the diocese that are being affected, their lives are directly being affected.
We have had people who have been directly affected. So one of our leaders in the Catholic community in the Chattanooga area, who is the parent of a Marine serving in the United States, got into a fender bender or something like that, and was removed. Has been here apparently for many decades. We've also had circumstances here in Knoxville where a parent of one of our students, some of our students working in construction, was picked up at a gas station. And you know, when someone is picked up, they are removed very quickly.
Very quickly.
So
within hours.
So the importance of reaching out, especially to the family members who are left behind. Providing both pastoral support has been very important. We've asked our priests to be attentive to that, but also the material things. Sometimes the person who's been taken is also a primary breadwinner. So providing assistance for families, for food, for utilities, whatever it might be. And we do have an extensive network of organizations with our parishes, St. Vincent de Paul societies and so forth, Catholic charities that assist with those material needs.
And just to follow up on that, Bishop, some context in terms of how many people you have seen impacted by this. These individual examples are compelling. What in terms of numbers are you seeing? Do you have a sense?
I do not have the statistics. I've met with some folks ecumenically who are working on behalf of immigrants, and one of the people mentioned that we have a high rate compared to many states, but it's less visible. But I don't have any way of verifying those figures.
I want to ask one more question about that. You all met recently with Governor Lee.
Yes.
I understand. Did that topic come up?
Yes.
Because our
Yes.
General Assembly has quite a few immigration bills.
We do meet with the governor. We also meet with a variety of legislators. And one of the things that we've been emphasizing is that there does need to be, nations have the right and the duty to control their borders, but we have to do it in a way that is also respectful of human dignity and of the laws that shape our culture as Americans, so that we respect the rule of law, the rights of persons, their dignity, due process. Those things are very important.
And how is that received? I'm curious.
You know, I had the sense as we met with the governor and other elected officials that they are aware of that need, and you know, we're at a point where we've taken a step toward enforcement of immigration laws, but now we need to look at a pathway for legal citizenship for those who've been here for many years. Some of them came as children and don't even remember the country from which they came.
Speaking of children, I'd like to know about the youth movement in the Catholic Church and what you're seeing in terms of growth in those numbers.
Yes, I have been overwhelmingly amazed at the engagement of young people. When I've been to our university campuses like UT, our student centers these days in Chattanooga here and East Tennessee State University are packed with young people. Those who are joining the Catholic Church and the OCIA process, we call it, larger numbers than historically. 1,000 last year. We expect more this year across the diocese. Many of them are young people.
Don?
So let's take it on a little happier note. Before the show,
yes,
we were talking about your experience when you became a bishop and you get sent to Vatican City for training. Tell us about that experience, and you interacted with then Pope Francis, but tell us the rest of that story, because I find that very interesting.
Name drop a little.
It's kind of a fun story.
Yeah, so when you're named a new bishop, you go to Rome for about a week or so and spend some time in new bishop training. And
Bishop Boot Camp.
Yes, exactly. So we had the opportunity to meet Pope Francis. That I found very moving. But the other thing that happened that was unexpected, I look back in hindsight now, the person who basically ran that week for us was Cardinal Prevost, who is now Pope Leo. So he spent a lot of the week with us, actually. Very humble person.
I don't think anybody at that time thought he might become the next pope, and that was a surprise to everybody that was paying attention to that.
A very big surprise.
Would you in your life have ever expected we would have an American pope? I sure didn't. I'm not Catholic, but I was like, I don't think that'll ever happen.
I never thought we would in our lifetime. I was very surprised. Now there was at least one news source that I saw that listed maybe the top 20, and he was one of the men.
He was on the list, but at the bottom of the short list.
And I noticed his name only because I had met him, and so I thought, oh, that would be interesting, you know. But I never really thought that would be a realistic.
So we'd like you to bring him here to Knoxville. Can you do that?
I bet he'd love your church.
I would love for Pope Leo to come to East Tennessee.
Despite being a White Sox fan, we do have a Cubs affiliate here in town.
Yes. I think I would love to have him in East Tennessee. That would be a major project.
If you could advise him one thing, what would you advise the Pope that would be important, you think, for East Tennessee Catholics that he focus on?
Well, I will say this. I think he has been very strong already in focusing on the importance of peace in the world. of working to find solutions that respect human dignity. And I think that prophetic role that a pope plays is so important in the world today.
I want to get some more of your thoughts on that question in particular. We're going to come back in our final segment with Bishop Beckman. That's right after this. Back on this Easter Sunday with the bishop at the Knoxville Diocese, Mark Beckman. Great to have you with us, as we mentioned throughout the broadcast. And I wanted to follow up what we were talking about, the tumult in the world. Not just in the world, but in our country, there just feels like this divisiveness. What are you counseling your parishioners about in terms of that tumult and how to deal with it?
First of all, I think it is so important that we, each in our own sphere of influence, make a positive difference, that we not be part of the problem, but part of the solution. So how do we create a greater sense of respect for each other? How do we encourage people to do that which is respectful of human persons and dignity? I think it's so important today that we, and on this Easter Sunday morning, we think about the fact that Christians believe that Jesus rose from the dead, and because of that, we believe that there is a different way of living life, a way that is life-affirming. So we don't lose hope in the face of the troubles of the world, but we ask what we can do to make a positive difference, how we can bring the light where there is darkness.
When it was announced that you were going to be the next bishop, we learned some interesting things about you and your love of hiking.
Yes.
And you actually sort of said during the press conference, actually, I'm kind of familiar with this part of the world because I come over here. You like to hike, and you like to hike the Smokies.
I love East Tennessee. I love the mountains, and since I was a little child, we would come to the Great Smoky Mountains to do hiking. And somewhere along the way, and it was after I was a priest, I fell in love with hiking and backpacking. So I love Roan Mountain up in the northeastern part of the state. Discovered some interesting hiking trails down near Chattanooga.
Have you done the AT?
But the Great Smoky Mountains, I've not done the whole AT, I've done little sections of it. But yes, the beauty of East Tennessee is incredible.
Well, we have House Mountain just right in East Knox County for a great day hike. So that would be my recommendation.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it. I've heard others recommend that.
Do you work 7 days a week, or are you able to say, okay, today I get to relax?
So typically, I normally have a day off a week, and occasionally I'll get a couple nights together, and I've even had some friends come over and do some hiking already in the Smokies and things like that. So it's the workload varies quite a lot. There are things that happen in the office, and then I'm traveling around East Tennessee to the communities quite a lot.
The Sacred Heart Cathedral is one of the most spectacular buildings in probably all of Tennessee, to be honest. What was your first impression when you saw it?
When I first saw it, I got out of the car and I thought, am I in Florence, Italy? I was really struck by the beauty.
It is. I told you one of my clients built that church, and they went to Italy to pick out the marble, and the paintings on the ceiling are incredible. And people have not been in to see the Sacred Heart Cathedral should go see it just to understand how gorgeous it is.
And the beautiful thing is, on the Sunday services, it is filled with people, and the music is spectacular, and there is a joy and an energy and an enthusiasm. It is breathtaking, both in terms of the people in it and the beauty of the building, the natural light that comes in.
What happens on Easter Sunday in your church? It is today, but we're taping early.
Easter Sunday is an extraordinary day, so we have way too many people that can fit. So we actually have a satellite location this year at the cathedral that they're offering for backup services. So because the parking lot even can't hold that many people on a big day like Easter.
I want to close, Bishop, with your appeal to people who have maybe lost their way, maybe lost the Catholic Church, or are looking for faith. What is your message to somebody in that situation?
My message is never give up. Remember that you are beloved of God. Every single person created in the image and likeness of God is a beautiful son or daughter of God. Don't ever forget that. And sometimes you can discover it in a church, in a community, where a beautiful liturgy is unfolding, and sometimes you can discover it in the mountains as you're hiking alone. So find that place inside of you that reconnects you with that deepest mystery.
Bishop Beckman, we appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Easter.
Thank you. Happy Easter to you all. Thank you.
We're back with our talk around, and we'll honor a Catholic we miss dearly here at Inside Tennessee. Dennis Francis and his What's the Gossip is next. We are back on Inside Tennessee for What's the Gossip, honoring our old friend Dennis Francis, no longer with us, but you're taking some video in right now that featured a special guest at an event at the University of Tennessee, and that guest is on your screen. Former Vice President Mike Pence was in town to talk about civility and politics. Our John North was in attendance, and John, let's just have you break down a few things that really stood out to you about this conversation.
Yeah, it was put on by the Civics Institute through Becker and UT, mostly for students from all over the place. What was really fascinating to me, I've not ever seen him live before. He came to Knoxville, I think, in 2018. You may have gone to that. He reminded me of W, of his mannerisms. I was like, darn, reminds me of W. But what was fascinating was what he said. First of all, he talked a lot about being a Christian, but he also talked about how important it was not to do things like personally attack people in politics. He talked about how great the American people are, how we are great as a nation, and sort of, he said God kind of looks out for the United States. He believes, he said, and I thought this was interesting, how great the American people are, but we just need a government as good as our people again, and I think we'll have it soon. What he didn't say, and the way you were able to read through the lines, I thought was very obvious. And he never said a word about who's running the country now. And it's also ironic that on the same morning that he was talking to all of us, or afternoon, Robert Mueller died, and the president was saying some pretty awful things about how glad he was that Robert Mueller died.
Maybe the least presidential thing I recall seeing about someone passing.
It was all just kind of reverberating, but it was great to have the former vice president
here. Where was that man from 2016 to 2020?
Well, a lot of people praise what he did January the 6th.
That was 2021, I might add.
Yes.
Don, you wanted to reflect a little bit on our conversation and the politics of some of Susan's questions and what we got into with the bishop about immigration in particular.
Well, it was interesting that he suggested that, and I'm sure that it was true, that some of the legislators really seem to be receptive and warm. Clearly, the bills that are passing and coming out of committee and are popular are hateful, ugly, inappropriate bills, in my opinion, political opinion, and it reflects nothing of what the Catholic Church is trying to do with their immigrant population to show some kindness. I think everybody agrees that we need to lock down the borders. I think everybody agrees, to an extent, lock down the borders. I think everybody agrees that people that commit crimes should be deported, serious crimes. But what's happening now is not reflective of the values of Christianity, despite maybe this version of Christianity that some of the pro-Trump MAGA people have created. And I just, it's so refreshing to hear the bishop talk about the positive things that are going on, and so disappointing to think that they are not being acted out in government.
Well, and I'm happy to hear they did meet with the governor and legislative leaders and so forth, but they also need to become more active. I mean, they have made these very strong statements about walking with our migrant brothers and sisters, so I hope that they will actually do something about it instead of making statements. And the Catholic Church well, the Catholic Church could be probably more formidable than they are, because they certainly have I mean, not as large as the Baptist in Tennessee, but they certainly have a large a group of parishioners, so they can be important. And
we appreciate you watching on this Easter Sunday. Have a great time with your family and reflection on this day, and we'll see you next week on Inside Tennessee.
We're dying John North right after the show.